Hey YouTube, it's been a while since my first video, but I'm back again with another one. This time I'm going to tell you about this Pac-Man arcade I built. But before that, let me tell you a little bit about the game and why I built it. Pac-Man. An icon of 80s pop culture and arcade nostalgia. For over 30 years, Pac-Man has spawned more than 30 sequels and spin-offs in arcades, home consoles, and mobile devices. My question is, which is the best Pac-Man game so far? Many enthusiasts would say it's the original Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man. Or how about Pac-Man 256?
Wrong.
Or the many great console games?
Wrong.
I've always been a fan of the Miss Pac-Man arcade cabinet, but I don't think it's the best Pac-Man game. There is one game that always has me coming back for more. It's the only Pac-Man game that captures the magic of the original while keeping it simple, introducing new elements that keep the gameplay fun, addicting, and challenging. The game is Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. Championship Edition DX first released in 2007 as an Xbox Live Arcade exclusive, then the updated DX version released on 360, PS3, and later PC. This DX version took a great formula and perfected it. What's the most satisfying part of any Pac-Man? It's when your hard work pays off. You ate all the pellets, you avoided all the ghosts, and then you can eat the power pellet and eat all the ghosts. If this is what you want, Championship Edition delivers. In the game, you clear all the pellets on one side of the maze, and after eating the fruit or special item, the opposite side filled with pellets. This goes on back and forth. At the same time, you have sleeping ghosts that wake up when you go past them. Once they awaken, they start following you around the maze, forming a train. You want to have as many ghosts as possible following you till you get to that power pellet, because when that happens, all you do is turn around and eat all those ghosts. You can eat tens of them at a time, and it's so satisfying. It's not always as easy as it looks though. When your trail of ghosts is long, you can end up trapping yourself, and some ghosts go rogue. They don't follow you and they try to cut you off. The game's speed picks up significantly as you progress through the level, but luckily, you have a few tricks up your sleeve. You have a number of bombs that you can deploy at any moment to get you out of a tight spot, and when death is imminent, the game goes into slow motion, giving you that precious extra split second to make an escape. This is the core gameplay of this game, and it's brilliant. The levels are timed and the standard length is 5 minutes. It's an excellent formula for trying to rack up a high score. The game has a ton of customization, different modes and skins, all of which can be customized individually to set up the perfect level. All of the flashy visuals are tied together by a thumping techno soundtrack. You probably don't remember seeing this game at the arcades. Sadly, that's because Championship Edition never had an arcade release. But Pac-Man is an arcade game icon. It's meant to be played standing up with a ball-top joystick in hand. This game would have made an awesome arcade cabinet even today. 10 years later, the visuals still hold up. Instead, Namco keeps releasing uninspired versions of the original on larger screens and even larger screens. This gave me an idea. If Namco won't make it, maybe I can. Okay, if I was going to build this machine dedicated to one game, it was going to have to be on a budget, but I still had to look good. My goal was to do it for under $600. I started making sketches for the cabinet, finding inspiration in the original cabinet, and making it slimmer and more suitable for a flat panel screen. I then made a 3D model using the free software called SketchUp, making sure to make it to scale so I can extract the measurements. I then exported 2D images with measurements and printed them for reference. This is the control panel I came up with in Photoshop, with the joystick in the middle and the bomb buttons on both sides to accommodate left and right-handed play, as well as back and exit buttons. These were all the buttons the game needed. I used a screenshot of the signature neon skin of the game for the background. This is the marquee. I left the inside of the letters white so they can change colors with RGB LED backlighting. I found a 32-inch 720p LED on OfferUp for $30. This game runs at a max 720p resolution, so it was perfect. This tower was a thrift store find for $15. An old dual-core Dell with an Intel Core 2 Duo at 2.9 GHz and 2 GB of RAM with no hard drive. I found a used 160 GB hard drive on Craigslist for $20. After installing the new hard drive, I installed Windows and the game. The game ran pretty good, but I wanted better frame rates, so I got this GT 710 video card from Amazon for $40, and now the game ran silky smooth. On to the build. I started with nice, smooth plywood. Using the plans I printed out, I measured and drew out one of the side panels. Once it was drawn out, I decided to make it a little bigger, so I added 4 inches to the depth and 5 inches to the height. I was still able to get both side panels on one sheet. I used a circular saw and a jigsaw for the curved areas and tight spots. I then stacked the side piece on the remaining side of the sheet of wood and traced it, then cut it. I clamped both side pieces together and used an orbital sander to smooth everything out. When I was done sanding, I had 2 identical pieces. Once the sides are done, everything else comes together. The rest of the pieces were easy. They varied in heights, but all of them were 30 inches wide. I used these wood pieces here to join the sides and everything together using glue and screws. I decided not to use a subwoofer, so I didn't cut out the opening in the front. And for a cleaner look, I kept the speakers hidden by covering the entire panel in a black cloth. After everything fit just right, I sanded, primered, and painted the cabinet. I used $8 Rust-Oleum paint from Home Depot and a $17 HVLP spray gun from Harbor Freight. I bought a spool of LED strip for the marquee but had a lot left over, so as an afterthought, I thought it would be cool to put some under the control panel. I cut out some slots using my circular saw and laid out the LED strips, leaving room for the buttons and joysticks to minimize cutting of the strip, then laid my graphics and sheet of acrylic over it. I think it has a cool look, like glowing pellets. I did not want this machine to connect to the internet, because updates might change something, so I had to change some settings so the game would not try to keep connected to the internet every time I turned it on. I used a generic zero delay USB encoder combined with XPatter for mapping the buttons. Tied it up together with a program called Instant Sheller. It hides Windows login screens and launches the application of choice upon powering up the PC, in this case being Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. I ran into a problem when shelling it. XPatter would not launch in time and the controls would not respond. And when I could make it work without the shell, I noticed some delay with the inputs. This had to be a turnkey arcade. I needed to just have to press one button for everything to turn on and the game to launch. But this proved a challenge as all the software worked, just not all at the same time. It became easier and ended up working better to just take apart an old 360 controller I had laying around. I pulled out the board, soldered on the leads from the buttons directly to it. The soldering points were tiny, so I added some hot glue on top for extra security. This worked out perfectly and I had zero delay. I put the glass over the screen, traced out the screen, masking off the rectangle where the screen goes, and painting the inside of it black. I put the marquee on with some aluminum angle, tapped on some yellow T-molding, and trimmed and applied my vinyl graphics. The arcade itself works great. I haven't had any issues with starting up or shutting down, and the game is even better with a 4-way joystick. I was able to beat my top scores in every level using the stick opposed to a controller. And since this works so well, theoretically, you can use the same process to make an arcade for other Steam games. This project was a ton of fun, and as always, I'll leave links in the description to all the digital files I created in the process. For those who'd like to tackle this project or maybe build something similar. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments and I will answer as many as I can. Subscribe if you'd like to see more stuff. In my next video, I'm going to go over this arcade pedestal I built for my brother. I really like the way it turned out. I just might build one for myself. It all runs off a Raspberry Pi running the very cool Hyperspin-like Attract mode. Everything is contained on the top portion, so it's removable from the base, making it portable. This is definitely the best way to play this game. I think overall the build was a success, especially because I stayed under budget.
Watch.